Retiring on thin air. Lynn Paramore over at Alternet put together this 7 chilling facts about retirement in America. 57% of Americans have managed to put away less than $25,000 or 1 year's income for the median American adult. She estimates that close to half middle-class workers will be poor or near poor in retirement and reduced to living on a food budget of about $5 a day. For that, you can't even buy decent cat food. And we're going to cut CPS. We're going to cut the Social Security. Pension perils. We used to have pensions in this country. A pension is what's called a defined benefit plan. In other words, you pay into it for, through the years that you're working, and you know that whether you live to be, 80 or whether you live to be 180, well, 108, you're going to get a certain amount of money every year. My dad had a pension. It rolled over to my mom, actually, when he died. It was a fixed amount of money. So he could budget. He spent his whole, the last 20, 30 years of his life budgeting, planning for how he was going to retire because he knew exactly how much he was going to get. Reagan said, that's stupid. Having the middle class have some safety and security. Come on, we can't have that. Screw that. We got to figure out a way to make money for the banksters. So we went to 401ks and IRAs, where there's huge penalties if you take your money out, and the banksters get to run it. And as they're just starting, have you seen these E-Trade commercials on TV? The average person spends tens of thousands of dollars in hidden fees in their 401k. Actually, for the average person, the average retiree, it's over $100,000. That the banksters have screwed you out of because you have a 401k because you listened to Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. We don't have pensions anymore. Since 1985, since the middle of the Reagan administration, 84,350 different pension plans have gone out of business. Instead of pensions, what do we have? You got basically a savings account that you can't do much with, you can't access. And by the way, if the stock market goes to hell the year that you retire, tough luck, Charlie. And that's the whole 401k catastrophe. Shift the burden off the employer, shift the burden off the state, shift the burden off the rich guys, and put the burden on the poor people. After all, that's where it belongs, right? They're the poor people. The hell with them. Anybody who understands Reaganomics, just ask Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh. To hell with the poor people. You see this latest attack? They're going after Melissa Harris Perry. This is insane. She comes out and says, hey, kids are the property of all of us. And they're like, what? And I'm like, what, have you idiots never heard of a public school? I mean, have these idiots never heard of things like, police to protect our kids? Public playgrounds? Simple laws that provide for child safety restraint. I mean, come on. But even beyond that, B.F. Skinner had this brilliant idea. B.F. Skinner, he was a psychologist back in the 50s. He said, let's raise a child in a box. And he did it to his own daughter. Raised her in a box. First couple years of her life. Not a good idea. Hillary Clinton, it takes a village. She was right. Oh, but the conservatives are all hysterical. But I digress. So, do the Americans want Social Security cut? Right. Right. Oh, the Americans, they would just love to have Social Security cut, right? We don't need no stinking Social Security. Come on, we're all rich here, right? And if we're not, we can buy enough lottery tickets that maybe we can get that way. I mean, Limbaugh with his $400 million salary, and Hannity with his $200 million salary, and Glenn Beck with his $85 million. They got nothing to lose. These talking heads on TV, they typically start around $2 million a year. They got nothing to lose. But what about you? What about the average American? And then, let's means test the program, right? It's another part of the president's budget. Let's means test Medicare. Let's say, if you're rich, you don't need so much government money, so we'll scale it back a little. Seems to make sense, right? Except the amount of money you're getting to begin with is very, very little. And there's not that many rich people in America, oddly enough. In the grand scheme of things. We're talking about the top 1%. That's 1 out of 100. Actually, we're talking about the top 1/10 of 1%, of 100th of 1%. 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000. So if you take a little bit back from them, it bupkis does nothing. But what it has done is it has turned an entitlement program, a program into which we all pay and we all get back. It's turned it into a welfare program. And Bill Clinton showed us what you can do with a welfare program. You can just, put it where the sun don't shine and nobody cares. At least during good times. There's a lot of people suffering right now because of the so-called reforms in the 80s and 90s to welfare. And it wasn't just Clinton who did it. A lot of people suffering now. Because it sounds great and it works fine when the economy is in a bubble. But when the bubble bursts and people have run out of their long-term unemployment and the amount of money that they're getting for food is not enough to buy cat food and they can't pay the rent and you got nothing. America is quickly becoming a third world country thanks to 30 years of Reaganomics. And out of this, we get a proposal to cut Social Security, and that's somehow supposed to make the Republicans say, hey, yeah, let's raise the minimum wage.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Let's lower the retirement age. Let's start tariffs. Let's stop support for the oil and billionaires. Yeah, the Republicans are going to say all those things, aren't they? Yeah, because we're going to cut Social Security. Come on.